This video is designed to show you what to do once you have enough completed surveys, how you transfer the data from QuestionPro into Excel and get that Excel data file cleaned up and be ready to pull into SPSS. You'll notice on your QuestionPro account you have a list of your surveys. I've been tracking and I noticed that I have 151 completed responses on my Marketing 380 student profile survey. I have sufficiently more than 100, so I'm ready to download the data and move into the data analysis. So if I click on that particular survey, one of the first things I do is up at the top there's a button for reports. I click on that report and then it's going to present me with a variety of data here or links here that I can use to download the data. There's a link for download data. Again, you see here that you have 151 completed surveys, so I'm ready to do the data analysis. So I click download data. And you'll see there's a variety of formats: Excel, there's PowerPoint, SPSS. Students oftentimes want to download directly into SPSS. It doesn't work really well from QuestionPro into our version of SPSS, so my advice and my recommendation is we need to download it first into Excel, do a few things before we pull it into SPSS. So all you do is click the download button. When you click that, you'll notice that QuestionPro is going to send a note to the email address that you used to set up the account. They'll send you a link to the Excel file. They also give you a link right here to the Excel file that they downloaded. And so if you click on that link, it's going to ask you to open up an Excel. Just say OK, and then here you have your Excel file. There's a couple of things to note. First of all, there's a variety of tabs. There's introduction, overall statistics, raw data, and then the questions. The thing that we're mainly interested in is raw data. And as you can see, it's a bit of a mess here that what QuestionPro gives us, so it requires a little bit of cleaning up. The first thing I always do is I always refer to this column here that's indicated the time taken to complete, how many seconds it took respondents to complete your survey. So you notice right away these surveys that have 0, they have no data over here in the column or in their column in response to the questions. So I always come through and I delete all of the survey. They're not really completed surveys, so I just go through and delete those responses. You'll see that there's a variety of them as you scroll down. Here's one down here, and you'll notice there's no responses, so those are safe to delete. Now this is something that you need to watch for, because as you have 120 or so survey responses, QuestionPro is counting everyone that opened up the survey. So all these people that didn't really complete your survey are being counted. It's important that as you go through and delete all of these, that you're still left with at least well over 100 responses in order to do the data analysis. So you can see I have quite a few of these that were not really completed, and it doesn't really appear as if there's any data in those, so I'm going through and deleting all of those that are listed here in my spreadsheet. Just delete a few more of those, but you get the idea. And then down here at the bottom there's a series of them, and I will delete all of those. So now what I'm left with are actually survey responses where people have answers to their questions listed out here. The other thing that I like to do that's a bit of a mess that needs to be cleaned up in QuestionPro or in Excel from what they've given us is these first several columns, the response ID, the IP address, the timestamp, and the device, in addition to the time taken. Those are all bits of data that I require each group to hang on to and save. I ask you to delete them from here and copy them at the back end of your data file. So I highlight the columns, I say Control X to cut them, and then I scroll over to the end of my data and I paste them here in order to save them at the end of my data. Okay, and so now what I'm left with, the first several columns are blank. These series of columns are not relevant to me. And notice this column here, M, is the greeting or intro to my survey. We don't need any of that, so I can delete all of those columns. And what I have now is the first column, A, starts with all of the data and responses to my survey. The other thing that takes a bit of time, that's a little bit of a mess to clean up with QuestionPro, is it has pulled in at the top in row 1 each of the questions from my survey that I have in QuestionPro, and that's not in the format that we need it to be for our Excel data file. So we need to rename these. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a process to go through. You have to look at your survey, and you'll notice from my survey that we did in class as a homework assignment, I have question 1A, B, C, D, E, and F that are all linked together, and these are all of these how satisfied are you questions. We don't want the wording of our question here. What we want for our survey in order to be effectively utilized in SPSS is we call this question 1A, and we rename it. And so we have to go through each of those, question 1B, question 1C, and we do this for the entire survey that we have in order to get the proper name for our questions. And so we have question 1A through F, and then notice how important each of these following items are. These are questions 2A, B, C, D, E, and F as well. So I'm going to name this one Q2A, Q2B, Q2C, and then the third question is a categorical. How many units are you taking this semester? So this is simply Q3. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We asked on question 4, we asked students to rank order a series of things. There were 6 items. We were asking them to rank order. You'll notice that Question Pro has put this on 2 different rows, on row 1 and 2. And what we do is we're going to eliminate those, but this is really question 4A, question 4B, question 4F, relating to each of these things that students were rating. We don't need that row anymore, so we're going to delete that entire row of row 2. And we have what's left now with 1A through F, 2A through F, question 3, the series of question 4. We have to go through the entire survey and clean these up. I won't go through the entire process now in order to show you just what it looks like. One thing to be aware of, this is a question that I didn't ask on a previous semester, so these first group of students didn't answer that rank order question, but starting here with row 53, that's where students started answering that particular question. So don't worry about the blank set of information here in the Excel file. As you go through this entire process, this is the slow and laborious process, but it needs to be done in order to get our data set ready for SPSS. I'm going to pause the video and finish cleaning this up because we don't need to watch me do the whole thing, so hang on 1 second. Okay, so as you can see, I've renamed every one of my questions all the way through the entire survey, all the way out to question 16. And then right beyond the last question of my survey, which is the people's age and years, are those columns that I'd copied and pasted from the front part of my Excel data file, the response ID, IP address, etc. Those are all there as well. We can keep those. I always like to just scan through the Excel data file to make sure things look appropriate and look normal and acceptable. As you can see, these are all my responses. You may have your attention drawn to these here and wonder why there's a bunch of blank spaces here. Well, this is a skip question. People that answered 1 for this question were then asked a follow-up question. Everybody whose response was a 2 didn't answer this follow-up question. So that's what's happening here. So you notice only where there's a 1 in column X is there an answer in column Y. So that's fine and that's acceptable, but everything looks to be fine here, so I think we're ready to go. The last thing I do is that all these little tabs down here really cause some confusion for SPSS when I try to pull that data in. So what I always do once I've cleaned up my data, done all of the renaming of the questions, is I highlight the entire spreadsheet, which you can do by clicking this cell right here, and I say copy or Control C, and then what I do is I open up a brand new blank document, a blank workbook, and I paste the data file here. I give it a name, so I call this something that will be usable for me, that I can remember. I'll put it in my Marketing 380 folder. I'll call it the data file for video. I put it in this data file and save it, and then I'm ready to go. So now I have my Excel file that I am ready. Once I get it set up like this, the next video step number 1, data analysis, will show you how to take this Excel file and pull it into SPSS and open it up so you're ready to go. This shows you how to pull data in from Question Pro. I will do another video for those of you that are doing paper and pencil data entry, and you should be ready to go. So I encourage you to, once you're to this point, watch that step number 1 data analysis video and pull this Excel file into SPSS. Thanks.